The weather affects everything, from how we feel to how we live. But what's really going on above us? Each week on Atmospheric Insight, we dig deeper into the science of weather and the stories it shapes. This is Atmospheric Insight, where science meets the sky.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Atmospheric Insight. I'm meteorologist Adam Epstein.
Yeah, meteorologist Riley O'Connor.
So Riley, coming off to some rain yesterday, a little bit of tropical moisture from a weak atmospheric river. First thing I said to you today when I came in is, feels pretty humid outside.
It does. I have to say I don't mind it too much.
No, it's a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
We don't tend to get a lot of humidity here in Northern California, especially in the Central Valley. So when it feels a bit tropical, a little bit Hawaii-esque, if getting a lot of leniency there.
Right.
It's okay. It's okay with me. I kind of miss humidity sometimes.
I know. It's kind of nice to open the doors, windows, get some air,
Right. You're right. A different feel for us. And last week, we had a pretty big storm, actually 3 of them back to back to back, right? We're here forecasting for that, seeing the impacts of it day by day with the snow totals. So that's what I wanted to start with, our atmospheric impact. Surely this was making headlines all week, and I'm sure people will be talking about it for the rest of the winter because of how impactful it was. So here are those snow totals, and the number one spot, Palisades, Tahoe.
Wow. It's amazing to see that.
It is, right? I mean, I remember my first winter here. It's over 7 years ago now. And I saw the numbers on the models. I'm like, whoa, okay, this is different. And then I saw the National Weather Service put their forecast out, and they're forecasting like 5 to 10 feet of snow. I'm like, no way, this is insane. And then here we are, Palisades, just over 9 feet of snow with this storm. So it's not record breaking. It's been seen before, but it's still very special when it happens.
It still amazes me too, because I think back, like even working in the Midwest when we'd have snowstorms and how long it takes to kind of clear roads up and, get back into the everyday life. But they're quick here. Yeah, they are quick.
No, Caltrans does a great job. And I say this on air frequently. And like, if you're trying to get to the Sierra today, don't go, it's snowing. But by tomorrow, when the snow stops, Caltrans is on it.
Yeah.
And the roads clear up. At least the main roads do. I know the foothills had some problem. I don't have the totals here, but saw towards the left side of your screen, the lower elevations, snow got down to 1,500 feet. Cool. East of Auburn, saw 1.5 inches. And then places like Sonora, Arnold, a bit more populated. They had, in some cases, 1 to 4 feet of snow. And that is also not unheard of, but causes major disruptions.
Right. Yeah. And I remember, I think it was Dennis or no.
Probably Dennis.
Yeah. Up there, but we were talking over the weekend, and we were up in Grass Valley. We had reporters up in Grass Valley, and people were like, we don't get this often, but hey, we're enjoying it. They were tired. They were kind of living the life a little bit.
Right. Not strangers to snow. But it happens there. So big time snow totals, we ended up in the range of 5 to 9 feet. And our Sierra snowpack did see some improvement with numbers. Someone came into the office and asked me, so like, how far ahead are we now? I'm like, well, unfortunately, we're technically not ahead. Right. This did bring up the Central Sierra Snow Lab, Donner Summit area, to within line of normal. But statewide and in the Central Sierra, where Lake Tahoe is, we're around 72, 73% of normal snowpack, which can be surprising to a lot of people.
Right. And I know when you're looking at both of these numbers, you look at the percent to normal, percent to April 1st. It's really concentrating on, you want to look at the April 1st, right? That's the main one.
Right. So for anyone who's watching who's not sure of the difference, April 1st is when we tend to hit our maximum snowpack. After that, you expect warmer conditions and snow melt. So the April 1st number is very important in terms of our water year and how we're able to allocate water, because this is our frozen reservoir. So we are striving to get to 100% of our April 1st average. So we're 60% there. And the percent normal on the right side, that is to date, right? So that's how we're doing right now compared to previous years at this time. So the Southern Sierra is actually like in great shape, 96% of normal for this time of the year and 81% to the goal overall. But we have some work to do. And unfortunately, it's not looking great for us.
Yeah.
High pressure is moving back in, so
Mhm.
that could block storms, Riley.
Yeah, it is. And, and the thing is too, is it's been warm. We had rain
Yeah.
on top of the snowfall up there. I mean, there's still skiers up there, but yeah, it doesn't look too good in the short term forecast. I mean, we may see little precipits coming in this weekend, but it doesn't look like much at all.
Right. Yeah. It looks pretty weak. Unfortunately, it just not much juice along with that one. Some showers possible Saturday and
Mhm.
Sunday. And you mentioned that rain, and that's important not just for, the impacts of melting a little bit of snow, but for anyone who's looking for recreation. Unfortunately, we had that devastating story of many people losing their lives in an
Mhm.
avalanche. And that's because of this fresh, light, fluffy snow falling on an unstable base,
Mhm.
and you have a slab avalanche. That slab just slides off. Well, this is created by layers,
Mhm.
right? So if you have snow, rain, freeze, thaw, it creates these layers, these slabs with different moisture profiles, different temperature profiles, and that's unstable. They can slide off of each other.
Right.
So that's not what you want to see in winter.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that being said, the snow that we did get last week was of what skiers and snowboarders would consider like the highest quality. And I
Mhm.
wanted to talk about that for this week's Ask Adam about how not all snow is created equal. And I feel like a lot of people may not realize that. So let's check it out.
Why does snow in Utah feel like powder, while some snow in the Sierra feels like concrete? Well, not all snow is created equal. If you've ever lived in a snowy place, you've probably noticed that some snow is light and fluffy, while other times it's wet and heavy and just absolutely brutal to shovel. The difference comes down to something called snow to liquid ratio. 1 inch of rain can turn into 10 inches of snow or 25 inches of snow, depending on how cold the air is. Colder temperatures mean a higher ratio. That spreads out the moisture, leading to lighter, drier flakes, the kind of powder that skiers and snowboarders dream about. But when the temperature hovers near 32 degrees, you get a lower ratio. That snow is dense, wet, and heavy. It's great for making snowballs, but it will break your back shoveling. That's what people refer to as Sierra cement. This week, though, storms are pulling in colder air, so instead of that typical concrete, we're getting that primo powder that Utah is known for. Utah also benefits from higher elevations and storms that have already lost moisture after passing over the coastal range. In the end, it's the same story, same water, but very different snow. Snowflakes even change shapes depending on the temperatures, and there's a certain range where they form needles instead of flakes, but that's a story for another time.
So that cold air, right?
Yeah.
That came through. These storms dropped in directly from the north, and that's exactly what you need to drop the temperatures. Meanwhile, like these atmospheric rivers that
Mhm.
we just experienced, it's warm and muggy outside. That's what creates the Sierra cement, maybe infamous here in California.
Yeah.
Have you heard that term? Have we talked about that? I can't remember.
I think you mentioned, but not really into depth about that. I always
Mm.
call it the heart attack snow, because shoveling,
Shoveling, right?
and it's so heavy when you get the high moisture content. So heavy, it is really difficult to
Yeah.
shovel, just to move in it, and it's sloppy. It's
Yeah.
you know how it is. I mean,
Slushy, right?
it is.
So, yeah, the more water in the snow, right, the heavier it gets. And I've heard that term heart attack snow. It might be more popular elsewhere around the country.
Yeah,
Yeah, but for us, we get the moniker Sierra Cement.
I
But
like that. I like the
yeah, it's
term.
got a good ring to
It
it.
does.
But like, I will take that 10 out of 10 times compared to the East Coast ice there. Like, when I came out here, I was like, you guys gotta be kidding me. This is tremendous. It's amazing. But then I did go to Utah to ski with my friend who lives out in Salt Lake City. And I get it, right? That snow was like flour. It was so fine and powdery. So
Yeah.
that was pretty cool to experience. And yeah, we got a dose of that before it warmed up and then it rained. All right. That's how it happens here in California.
Yep.
All right, Riley, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back in 2 minutes. We're going to hear more from you. And who do you speak to this week?
I talked about air quality, so we're going to kind of dive into it. We dealt with poor air quality, especially when we had a fog too. So it's kind of nice to get some specific talk going on about it.
All right, cool. We'll see you in 2 minutes.
And welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This week, I had a chance to talk with several people, scientists, about air quality and what it means and what to look out for. Check it out.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us this week on Atmospheric Insight. This week, I have guest forecasters from Spheros Environmental, Patrick Zahn, Jeff Beamish, and Steve Irwin today. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Riley.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I want to talk about, the air quality, right? And I know you represent Sacramento Metro Air District, and we last year in the fall and even the winter months, we dealt with many days with foggy conditions in the valley, and I know that really creates some poor air quality. So I want to kind of jump in and talk about why And when do burning restrictions take effect in the valley? And what triggers a no burn day?
Yeah, so I can address that a bit. So the main weather conditions that we're looking for when we issue a no burn day is limited mixing and limited dispersion. So when I mention mixing, we're talking about vertical mixing in the atmosphere. So a no burn day usually has a strong upper level ridge of high pressure that limits mixing. It also, we're looking for light winds. So light winds will limit dispersion in the Sacramento region. And in addition to the upper level ridging, if you have a strong overnight inversion, that will trap pollutants in the lower levels of the atmosphere. And those are sort of the main conditions that we're looking for when we issue a no burn. And the goal of a no burn day is to reduce residential wood burning. And so that will help keep the air quality better
Mhm.
on those days so that yeah, we're making it so we're trying to improve the air quality through behavior of the residents.
So explain a little bit more on that. So say it is foggy in the morning and the fog does lift in the afternoon, and people may think, wow, okay, I can burn now, but that's not really the case, is it?
So yeah, that's definitely the case, especially because our forecasts are aimed at a 24-hour average.
Mhm.
So if you have poor air quality in the morning and the evening, if even if it improves during the middle part of the day, you can still have a poor air quality situation for the entire day.
Mhm. Let's dive into a little bit more of the science in that, right? Because you know, we as forecasters and scientists know what stagnant air is and what how dense fog can contribute to poor air quality. Let's explain it to the viewer. So if there is dense fog and it's sitting in the valley for days and somebody still is wanting to burn outside or wood burning stoves, how does that contribute to how does that stagnant air and the wood burning, how does that contribute to poor air quality? What exactly happens?
Jeff or Steve, you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, so staying in conditions during the winter, and one thing I want to actually point out is we're heading into the summer months here. Obviously PM 2.5 outside of wildfires isn't the primary pollutant that we're concerned about as forecasters. But
Hmm.
one of the reasons is during the summer months, we have the delta breeze that's coming in. You have
Hmm.
that differential heating between the Pacific Ocean and the land.
Hmm.
So you get that daily delta breeze in the summertime that does aid dispersion of particulate matter.
Hmm.
That doesn't happen in the winter months because of the fact that the sun angle is lower. It's a
Hmm.
lot cooler outside. The days are a lot shorter. And so it lends itself to more days, more opportunities to have these stagnant conditions develop. So limited dispersion, just based on the fact we don't get the delta breeze,
Hmm.
certainly plays one part into the equation where we are worried about residential wood burning during the summer. Steve?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think what we see in the winter, which is different from what we see in the summer, is those low-level mixing heights are very close to the surface, and so when you get a bunch of residential emissions happening all at once as people are trying to heat their homes, it becomes trapped right near the ground level. So something that would climb upward into the atmosphere during the day on a
Hmm.
normal warm day in the winter, it's all
Hmm.
squashed right down next to the surface, and so people end up breathing that in instead of it just releasing up into the atmosphere.
Hmm.
Fog is a key player because actually high relative humidity can cause particle formation to increase. And so, what would otherwise be emitted, that fog and relative humidity actually makes that process happen more readily. And so, you get more PM 2.5 that's getting generated near the surface, getting confined down where people are breathing.
Right.
So that makes it more critical. One thing we saw this winter, which was really interesting, is the height of the fog has a lot to do with the impacts that we have in air quality. And so
Okay.
when we get a shallow fog near the surface developing, that's usually showing that really good radiational cooling overnight,
Hmm.
probably a stronger temperature inversion.
Hmm.
And the fog and the enhancement from that higher relative humidity is right near the surface. That's when we see our worst conditions. However, what we saw a lot of this winter was that elevated low cloud deck stratus that was above the surface,
Hmm.
which actually kept it warmer at night. And what we saw in the forecast profiles of the atmosphere as we look up and see how deeply that air is going to mix, is that low cloud deck was actually helping with mixing because it was trapping heat near the surface. And so that actually made some of the days that would have been pretty bad not as bad as they would have been.
Very good points there, and some good talk about that too. And I think that when viewers watch this, they will understand it a little bit more and be like, "Okay, this makes sense." I love the relation there, and you bringing that in. For people who are concerned about this, and maybe don't have heat or they're relying on wood burning fireplaces, what cleaner alternatives can homeowners use to stay warm while protecting the air quality?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first and foremost, with the Check Before You Burn program with the Sacramento Air District, there are citizens that can file for exemptions. That way, they would be allowed to burn during these burn periods. And for more information on that, you can go to airquality.org for details on how you can file for one of these exceptions. So, but outside of that, I think one of the more simpler things would be just regular home maintenance, making sure that that sealant underneath your door, that's replaced and isn't allowing cold air to come in at night. Caulking around windows and doors as well, kind of refreshing that every couple of years, just to make sure we're not getting that seepage of cold air into your home. And then obviously, going to electric means, an electric fireplace rather than wood burning is another method to stay warm as well.
Okay, perfect. One quick question, and we have about 30 seconds left. I lived in Southern California for a while and then moved up here to the north after I've lived around the country. But I've heard this from people that have lived there their whole lives. Was the air pollution and the air quality issues much worse back in the day in the 70s, for example, versus what we have right now?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had vast improvements in air quality due to emissions reductions, and it's been a real success story over the last 40, 50 years. So we're seeing it's much less frequent to have a really poor air quality day.
Perfect. All right, Patrick, Jeff, and Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to talking with you again sometime in the near future.
Sounds great. Thank you, Riley.
Thank you.
Riley, I love your conversations with these scientists.
Yeah.
And Steve Irwin, great name, by the way, brought up something that's pretty interesting. Instead of having that very low fog and contact with the ground, it's low stratus. And that actually allowed for some mixing. So even though it was gray and kind of gloomy, air quality wasn't as bad as it would have been if everything was trapped right at walking level.
Yeah. Great points for all of them. They all brought up a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, that's really cool. Anything else that stood out to you?
I think Jeff talking about the Delta breeze in the summer, how we don't see it as much, I think is very interesting versus the winter with the low sun angle.
Yep.
So bringing that science in there was really cool.
And the Delta breeze, probably the biggest celebrity, top 5 at least, to ever come out of Sacramento.
That's
People
right.
love the Delta breeze.
Yeah, I do too. I'm a fan.
Yeah, we're all fans in the summer, man. That cools us down. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. Riley, have you ever had a cat? Do you have a cat?
I have had a cat when I was younger. I don't have one now, but I have had cats.
So you like cats? You're a cat guy?
Yeah,
me too. I've never had a cat though. I am allergic.
Oh yeah, not a good thing.
No, it doesn't work. But they are cute.
Can't you have a hairless cat?
They're not as cute. But let's go over to forecaster Genevieve Melzer, who's going to take us to a area where they take care of cats outside and see how they deal with the weather.
Nestled in the El Dorado Hills community, Fat Kitty City Humane Society is open to all the elements. We're talking about flooding, wind, fog, extreme heat, wildfire danger. Deputy Director Christine Morris gave me an extensive tour of the facility and shared the difficulties of running a humane society that's dealing with all the elements.
So as you see when we go out here, and I'll point out to you that all of our enclosures during the wintertime, they have vinyl siding, so it keeps all the wind and the rain out. It's very important to us that we keep our kitties warm and as much as possible keep them cool in the summertime.
What is the biggest weather-related challenge that you face here at Fat Kitty City?
Creek flooding. We flooded on Christmas Eve. It was bad and we had some damage. So during the wintertime, when our creek floods, it gets very scary for us. We have some culverts that we have to keep sealed so the cats can't escape. So we have specialized flaps that when the water pushes through, it pushes them open and the water comes through. Unfortunately, when the debris comes through, it can block the culverts. And so when it does that, if we are not here on site watching at any given time, especially throughout the middle of the night, they can block. And what happens is very quickly the creek can overflow. When it overflows, it doesn't affect the cats because the cats are up in their beds or whatever, but it can damage our sheds, our barn, our kibble area. So of course on Christmas morning, Christmas Eve morning, the creek flooded because our culverts were blocked with debris. So I rushed down here and it was completely flooded over the concrete, back to the barn area where you saw, and it was about 3 inches deep into our cat food room. And no cats were in there because the cats said, oops, water, I'm just gonna go, the 8 cats that live in the 30-bed room went somewhere else. And so we couldn't release the grates because you had, thousands of gallons of water pushing through. So it took us quite a while to release it, but by then the barn, all the bedding was flooded. Our cat food room was completely flooded. We're still dealing with, the molds and the residual leftovers and all the bedding that went there. And of course it took us, 6-7 hours on Christmas Eve. And we had some amazing volunteers that stayed, and just helped us clean up the mess. But it ruined Christmas Eve morning, and we have to revisit how to fix the culverts. And we still don't have a good solution of how to fix that. Right now they're boarded shut, but every time it rains, it's like, how hard is it raining?
Was that the most intense storm that you've dealt with here?
Oh no, that was just one of them. It was 2019, and it was $25,000 in damage from the storm, from the flooding. Yeah, it knocked the fences down. It was really bad. And then I know a couple years ago, the storm, I think almost every winter, the storms have been bad and caused some damage. Yeah, so that was just Christmas Eve. So, this is still rainy season. So it's like, okay, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? And then we have straw bedding in all the houses to keep the cats warm. And if the little flaps on the houses aren't closed, it wets the straw and it'll mold it. And we have to go in and remove the straw bedding and go in and replace it. So we have to constantly check it to make sure the cats aren't in wet straw. So we're having to go through to make sure, because we wanna make sure they're warm, of course.
Did the period of dense fog earlier this year affect operations and animal welfare?
That fog, that was the worst. It actually really affected us really badly. So most of our little cat houses didn't have the little flaps because they weren't needed. That fog was getting in all the moisture and soaking all their beds. And we had never experienced that before. It was new to us. And we kind of were in a panic. We didn't know what to do. So one of our volunteers had to go out and we ordered this vinyl stuff, like plastic, whatever, and they started stapling it to all the front of the houses to prevent the fog from going in. We had to remove all of the straw, all of the bedding, and redo it. And we actually saw a peak in the cats getting sick because the houses were wet inside, because that fog went on for a few weeks, and it was constantly foggy here, like all day, every day fog. And everything was damp, everything was moist. It was really bad. It was probably in the 7 years I've been here, was the worst winter we had.
Join us next week as we uncover how wildfire season and summer heat challenge Fat Kitty City and how they protect the cats in their care.
Very interesting and very cute. So with the rain last week that we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, it did flood there. And Genevieve sent me this picture. It might be a little bit difficult to see.
Yeah, you see the water.
Right. You could see it coming up against this area, the creek. There it is.
Yeah.
And they had to try and board that up to fix it. And then she also mentioned the fog, which you talked about with air quality.
Yeah.
Right. Full circle moment here.
Yeah. Right. You think about it. I mean, you can't have, the dampness. Cats, cats getting sick.
It's great. The cats have definitely great people looking after them. They're Fat Kitty City. What a name. All right. What an episode of Atmospheric Insight. Riley, I think it's our best work yet.
Yes.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you again next week.